What if Earth had rings like Saturn? At first glance, the question seems like a bit of celestial eye candy. A beautiful what-if that belongs on a motivational poster or the desktop wallpaper of a dreamy astronomer. But what if it weren't just a fantasy? What if Earth had massive, arching rings of ice and dust like Saturn, visible even during the day, and glowing mysteriously at night? What would they look like from different parts of the world? How would they affect life on Earth, our culture, our science, even our weather? Let's suppose, for a moment, that some benevolent cosmic sculptor gave Earth a set of perfect rings, elegant arcs stretching out tens of thousands of kilometers into space, made mostly of ice and rock fragments, just like Saturn's. They hover silently above us, majestic and ghostly, held in balance by gravity and motion. We're not just talking about a pretty sight. The presence of planetary rings would alter life on Earth in deep and sometimes surprising ways. First, the view. Imagine walking outside in the early evening. The sky is tinged with orange from the setting sun, and there, arching across the heavens, are the rings. Unlike a rainbow, they don't fade in minutes. They are permanent. They glow, casting soft shadows across the landscape. At night, they reflect moonlight and starlight, bathing cities in a silvery glow. No telescope required. Children could grow up tracing their curves in the sky with their fingers. Poets would write odes to them. Lovers would point them out from balconies. They'd be part of every culture, every language, every calendar. The rings would become a shared mythos of the human experience, our reminder that we're part of something vast and spinning. But wait, there's science to consider too. Saturn's rings are enormous, but they're also incredibly flat, only about 10 meters thick in many places. Let's give Earth a scaled-down version. Perhaps rings that stretch from 1.5 Earth radii to 2.5 Earth radii. That's from about 9,500 kilometers to 16,000 kilometers from the center of Earth. That would make them visible from much of the surface, but thin enough not to collapse or fall into the atmosphere. The material in the rings, ice and rock ranging in size from sand grains to small boulders, would be in orbit, traveling at several kilometers per second. They'd form a shimmering halo around the planet, brightest near the equator and invisible near the poles. But what would they really look like from Earth's surface? From the equator, ironically, you might not see them much at all. The rings would lie almost directly overhead, and because they're so thin, they might just appear as a faint band, or not be visible at all unless the lighting was just right. However, as you moved away from the equator toward higher latitudes, the rings would appear more and more tilted in the sky. From about 45 degrees latitude, they'd rise like great gates of heaven, wide arcs stretching from horizon to horizon. From northern Canada or Patagonia, they'd hang like celestial bridges, always high in the sky. At sunrise and sunset, the rings would put on a show. They'd catch the sunlight before the sun itself rose, glowing in pinks and golds. At night, they'd reflect moonlight, acting like a kind of natural backlight to the stars. Stargazing would never be the same. Some constellations might be hard to see through the shimmer of the ring light. Others might appear doubled or warped. Astronomers would have to adapt to a sky that's never truly dark. Of course, that's the aesthetic side of things. But Earth's new jewelry would have consequences. Big ones. Let's talk about shadows. Rings don't just reflect light, they also block it. The rings would cast massive, shifting shadows on Earth's surface, depending on the position of the sun and the angle of the rings. At the equinoxes, when the sun lines up directly with the equator, the rings could cast broad shadows across the tropics. These aren't little shadows, either. We're talking about wide, diffuse bands that might lower temperatures by a few degrees, especially in places where the sun is otherwise intense. That leads us to a strange possibility: climate rings. Seasonal shading by the rings might alter weather patterns across the globe. Some regions might receive less sunlight, leading to cooler temperatures or even changes in rainfall. Agriculture could be affected. Crops would need to be replanted in zones that fit the new light patterns. Deserts might shrink or expand, depending on how the rings filtered sunlight. And now, let's imagine how the rings affect night. In the real world, the night sky has a natural rhythm. The moon cycles through its phases. Stars shine and twinkle. But now, the rings would provide a constant glow, always there, always bright. In cities, that might not be noticeable. But in remote areas, it would matter. True darkness would be rare. No more pitch-black forests. No more completely dark deserts. Animals that rely on darkness, bats, owls, fireflies might struggle. Evolution would adjust, eventually. But for a while, ecosystems might be thrown off balance. Then there's the question of debris. Rings aren't just pretty, they're dangerous. Every particle in the ring is traveling at orbital speeds, fast enough to do serious damage. If a large enough chunk broke loose and spiraled toward Earth, it could cause local devastation. Earth would have its own natural satellite shrapnel field, and managing collisions, especially for satellites, would be a nightmare. Speaking of satellites, space travel would become more complicated. Any spacecraft launching from Earth would have to navigate the rings. Depending on their orientation and thickness, certain orbits might be impossible without going through the ring plane. Space agencies would need new protocols. Launch windows would shrink. The International Space Station might have to live below the rings or be shielded from debris. Satellite internet? GPS? All of it would have to be redesigned for a world wrapped in ice and stone. But not everything is more difficult. In some ways, the rings offer opportunities. Ring shadows, for instance, could be studied to understand solar radiation better. Their interactions with the atmosphere might help us understand how sunlight warms the planet. They could even be harnessed for research on space weather and light scattering. And culturally, the rings would be everywhere. In flags, in religion, in marketing. Entire mythologies would arise from them. Ancient civilizations would have seen them, worshipped them, feared them. The rings might be seen as divine halos or ominous omens. They'd be used to mark the calendar. The day the rings turned red might be a festival or a superstition. In the modern world, the rings would be a constant subject of photography, time-lapse videos, and influencer selfies. Instagram would be full of ring shots. Poets would never shut up about them. Neither would scientists or astrologers. Rings around the Earth wouldn't just be decoration. They'd be a symbol of fragility, of time, of science, and of the sheer outrageous luck that put us here. They'd be more than beautiful. They'd be us. Lab reality. We know it.